Hi, everybody. My name's Lou Adler. Thank you for that nice introduction. He didn't say exactly what I told him, but he got close. What I want to do before we begin, because literally when Jonathan told me I was coming to Milwaukee, I said, "Where's Milwaukee?" Pretty much said that. I know the last time I was here, I won't tell you about that, and James Schreier told me not to say that story, so I won't. But I would like to get some idea of some hiring challenges you folks are facing. So I've asked Laura to go around the room. Let's start on this side. I will then shift over to this side. But over here, I want to hear some of the biggest hiring challenges we're facing in this area are. And just kind of give me who you are, the company, and a quick take. These are like 20, 30-second things. We don't have that much time, but I want to do here half a dozen or so. Big hiring challenge we're facing in Milwaukee.
Hi, I'm with Laughlin Constable. I work with the development team. In Milwaukee, we have a shortage of competent developers. So we're hiring .NET and Java developers, and we just can't find anybody out there that wants a job.
Okay, so anybody other have a challenge in hiring competent anybody? Just want to get a sense of, so competent developers is one thing. So keep on going. There's some, just say it. I need to get a half a dozen here. Biggest hiring challenge I'm facing is?
I'm Megan White from Harley-Davidson Motor Company, and one of our biggest challenges is finding electrical engineers.
Okay, so competent electrical engineers or just electrical engineers? So she's interested in competent, you just want electrical engineers. Okay, so I just want to get the spreads here. And let me also say the humor gets no better than that. But having dealt with Jonathan's team yesterday, that's probably good enough for Milwaukee. I get kicked out of a lot of cities, I just want you to know that. And there's a reason for it, and it's justified. A couple more hiring challenges, though.
I'm Ellen Luby with A.O. Smith, and I think our biggest hiring challenge is disengaged or disinterested hiring managers who don't want to spend time helping us find something.
Okay, so how many of you have a problem with hiring managers not fully engaged? Okay, I want to hear a couple more. So just say this. I've been asking this question for 30 years. They're the same as I heard 30 years ago. I want to hear some new ones. So new hiring challenge. Or I'll take an old one, too. Current hiring challenge.
I don't know if I have a new one for you, but I'm Rick Fox with Natural Resource Technology. We're environmental consultants, and we have trouble finding senior seller doers.
Senior seller doers?
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard that. That's people who actually get stuff done and sell. Are they sales reps, yes, or are they just influencers?
Both.
Okay, got it. So hiring people who actually get results. Is that a challenge with anybody here? No, but everyone has that? Now, come on, this is the warm-up act. I mean, so I'm trying to get the team going here. Now I could see why you had so many people here, Jonathan. You guys have to think about that one. You'll get there when I leave. I need a couple more. Okay.
I'm Kristen with Illingworth Kilgus Mechanical, and I'm trying to find talent with a unique skill set, which everybody in the country is looking for. So Milwaukee is competing against New York and San Diego, and trying to get those folks to come. The
people you're looking for, and I didn't hear your exact position, but the people you're hearing, this is not as competitive an area as some other cities in the country, right? In fact, those other cities in the country say the same thing. Because everybody in New York, I was just in New York, their problem is there's too much competition. So it's the same thing, it's just everybody wants the same people. Let me kind of stop there, unless somebody you got one more, let's take one more, Laura, you got one there? Yeah. I think we got to go to this room. Let's take one here and then run over here and we'll get one on this side.
I'm Angie Caston from Palermo's Pizza, and a challenge that we have is finding the right culture fit.
Okay, cultural fit. How many of you have that issue with cultural fit? Now let's kind of stop there, Laura. I don't want to put you through the triathlon here.
I'll just start throwing it.
Literally, I've heard these exact same responses. I started out as a recruiter in 1980. I actually worked for a living prior to that. That was actually the best line so far, but it's okay. I guess you guys don't want to hurt any recruiters' feelings, right, today? This is the same problem in 1980, same problem in 1990. And what was real interesting, in 1997, and some of you were still around then, some of you might have been in elementary school, but you were still around, the cover story of Time magazine, and it was, Monster was just coming out, Career Builder was coming out, and the cover story said, I think it was April 1997, the war for talent has been won. We finally, with the emergence of job boards, everybody will be able to hire top talent. How'd that turn out? Then applicant tracking systems came into being. The war for talent is now going to be easy. We can easily mix and match people with jobs, and everyone will have great careers. How'd that turn out? Then we got LinkedIn, and that kind of worked for a while, but didn't work, and we have all these tools. We've been promised the war for talent would finally be won. How many of you would say the war for talent has been won? Not many. How many of you would say out loud, has not been won? That wasn't loud. That was, how many would you say out loud, it has not been? Just say anything. Yes, no, I don't care. This, again, is the warm-up part. So this is the exact same challenge. So what we try to do, and I want to tell some stories today. I mean, I best go over here, so I'm now trying to align this group and optimize the situation. There's a book that came out a year ago called The End of Average. It was by Professor Todd Rose. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but Todd called me up and said, Lou, I'm dumbfounded that companies are still trying to hire people the old way, mixing and matching skills and complaining. And then they try to do that more efficiently. He found performance-based hiring. I think what you're doing makes perfect sense. Professor Rose is the director of education for the Muppets. He's also the director of individual performance and optimization at Harvard and a Harvard professor, TED talker. He basically says the way we educate kids, preschool, grammar school, high school, and college is fundamentally wrong. And he's affecting that worldwide. He also says the way we hire and manage people is fundamentally, some people have it right, but he said performance-based hiring seems you've figured out the secret sauce. And I'd like to just talk to you today about that secret sauce, which when you at the end of it, whenever we're done here, you can say it's obvious. It's not rocket science. Yeah, this is the way we should do it. What's interesting is we don't do it that way, and we've never done it for 30, 40 years. I wrote a book, which you all have. I can sign a few of them. I can't sign them all only because I have a bad shoulder, and that's my excuse anyway, so I'll be happy to sign. If anybody asks some great questions, now you might not, let me also state this. If you return the book now to Amazon, you will get $12 back. If I sign it, you will get $1 back. So just to give you the value of that point. So it's nothing remarkable. And it's also, I have some free bonuses, some free gold stars. You have to pay close attention to the gold stars, which we'll give away as we go along. If you have an iPad or a cell phone and you would like to download this handout, it's at bud.url/Titus Leadership, and there's this handout here. bud.url Titus Leadership, and you can download it right now to your cell phone or what have you. If you send me an email or info@louadlergroup.com and ask for the handout, you'll get that too. So if you want the handout. So let me kind of describe, here's what Todd said. He just thought, and he talked to a couple of my clients who was kind of blown away about how we actually suggest people do hiring. And the fundamental thing, and I'll get into some details as we talk here, is I hate skills-based job descriptions. They have nothing to do with predicting ability. So if I had to say one theme that you'll hear at the end, and I ask you what's the most important thing, is the use of skills-based job descriptions prevent you from hiring good people. And all the challenges you say, I don't want to say that's the root cause. The root cause is a strategic issue we'll get into, but at the tactical level, that's a problem. And managers who continue to use that will continue to, you'll still have this problem 10, 15, 20 years from now, long after I'm out of this industry, which I said I'd be out of it a long time ago. One of the key things that Todd talks about is that context matters. It's not just ability, it's the situation the person is put in. It's the job, the hiring manager, and the culture. All of those are important. If you don't take into those account at the moment you hire someone, that person's going to underperform or be problematic if the person performs. Now, I want to kind of talk about this situation, which is somewhat idealistic, but not unachievable. I call it a state of Q. I just want to ask you if you've ever been here, and I believe you have. State of Q, and you can look at that mathematical curve, and it's probably not the correct mathematics, but it's an optimum state where you have an excellent candidate, top 25% candidate. Interviewing accuracy is absolutely near perfect. The cost per hire is as low as possible. Time to fill is as low as possible, and candidate satisfaction is off the charts. A state of Q. Now, if I just say that, has anybody here ever hired someone who has achieved that superfecta? Because I'm going to say you have done it many times. Every single person you promote, not a political promotion, a true promotion, has achieved that. promoted the person. Obviously, the person didn't have the skills, but they performed. Promoted the person. What was your name? Phil. This is whom I promoted Phil to a senior director of marketing position. He was a senior manager. We know he could do it. He worked with him for 3 years. We have a new product. Hey, let's give the job to Phil. Instant hire, no cost, high performance, high customer candidate satisfaction. Every single promotion that's not political achieves that state. So what you kind of think about it, promotion, we get a referral. Phil told me about Karen. I don't know if there's a Karen. I'm sure there's a Karen in the room here. I hire Karen. I'm the VP marketing. I hire Karen to be the senior director. It's pretty close. I'm still going to make the same judgment because I have a connection with Phil that Karen is a pretty strong contender. So referrals. What's interesting, when you hire someone who's known, we focus on their ability to perform. We go outside and we change the rules entirely. It's not about the person's performance, it's about the person's skills. And we have this silly interview which we say, oh, does the person have enough skills? But we've eliminated all the people who could perform the job. So I'm going to contend, once we go away from someone we know, even directly or indirectly, we change the rules of hiring, which makes no sense. Why don't we still focus on their performance? And to me, that's the fundamental problem we have with hiring. And then we try to do that more efficiently, based on skills which has no ability to predict performance. So let me kind of get past here. This is a statistic. I'm sure, how many of you have applicant tracking systems in your company? How many of you are using a company called Greenhouse? Is that, probably nobody here. This is the Silicon Valley. It's the hot startup one. They've got about 300 or 400. It goes from like 100 people to 2,000. But I was in Silicon Valley last week, and 90% of the companies there use it, irrespective of that. They processed, this was the statistics they showed. They only been around 3 years. In 3 years, we processed 13 million applications, official applications for 200 plus companies. Of that, 112,000 people were hired. That's 1%. To get to the 13 million, they needed 130 million views on those applications. So 130 million people looked at it, 13 million applied, only 112,000 people got hired. I then talked to the president of the company separately. I said, let's go through the numbers. What was the source of those 112,000 people were hired? Only 15%, 16,000 actually applied to the job, to find the job. 45% were direct source, meaning that somebody looked on a resume, sent it out, and asked the person if he or she would be interested, and 40% were referred. So 15% of 13 million people got 112,000, or 15% of 112,000 got those jobs. It took 13 million people to place 16,000 hires. What a waste of time. And we've been doing that since the job boards came out. It was easier when, some of you probably remember classified ads in a newspaper. It was more efficient then. And I'm going to say we actually hired better people then, because you only had 2 inches or 4 inches or a display ad to write everything about the job, not this laundry list of all these things you need to have. And I'm going to contend the internet actually made things worse, didn't make it better. And we spend billions of dollars trying to be more efficient doing that. So let me ask you this question. And I would like you to just answer it yes or no out loud. Does the quality of the people you're attracting represent the best people in the field? How many of you say that louder? I want to warm up this group here. No, clearly it doesn't. I mean, we're seeing a lot of people. So let's take a look at the top 25%. And I'm going to contend, if I looked and we did an audit of all the people who you're attracting to your job postings, it would have the shape, the quality, if you assigned it by quality, have the shape of that teardrop. 1 or 2%, maybe in the top 25%. A few people above average, and a lot of people you don't want to hire. And I suspect the teardrop is it got a bigger bulb at the bottom. Now, I talked a week ago Thursday to a brilliant guy who's developing this great artificial intelligence software, and most applicant tracking systems are now buying it, which allows you to take thousands of resumes and rank order these people in not only in skills-based competencies, they also go in and look at what skills are relevant, what's the person's track record. They then look out on the internet and they rank the companies that the candidates work for in terms of quality, rank the education in terms of quality, and actually looked at the progression of growth. You look at that and it's pretty phenomenal. He had a database he showed me last Thursday, Southern California, 4,400 data scientists. And he said we found 29 who meet all the criteria. So 29 out of 4,400. And he ranked order them, and I looked at them, they were pretty good people. I asked him this question: are they the best people in the field? He said, what do you mean? I said, these are the best people who applied, but are they the best people in the field? He said, probably not. So now he's taking, and he's got $18 million in venture capital money so far to figure out how to do something we shouldn't be doing in the first place. Now we're talking about how do you do that with people who aren't applying. That's a different issue. But just think about all the money that's invested, the applicant tracking systems you've invested, the workday systems you've invested in something we don't need to do. So let me ask you this question. Is the quality of people you're now hiring better than the people currently in your company or equal to? How would you say the quality of people hiring now is better than your current company? A few people. Most of them would say at best it's the same. Because people hire people just like themselves. If you have a disengaged manager, you're not going to hire a world-class person. So even if you could find a top 25% person, could you hire the person? What most companies do is they try to raise the teardrop to get more people to apply. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to do, but they try to get the teardrop. I have a totally different approach. Totally different approach to get to Q. I call it less is more. Less sourcing. Let's identify 20 to 25 people in total we know are good people. We look on LinkedIn, I find a person, Mary Jones, for a director of marketing position. Mary's a senior manager at a company that's growing slower. My company's growing faster. I have a director level spot. I find 10 or 15 people like that. I know if I can get in touch with Mary, I can convince her that my job's a career move. I might also go proactively search on LinkedIn for my employees' direct connections, and this is the true value of LinkedIn, is I can search on my connections. So every single person at Harley-Davidson, how many employees at Harley-Davidson? 3,000 to 5,000, 10,000, just roughly. I couldn't hear that, but let's assume it's over 10,000. I don't know. How many?
6,000.
Huh? 6,000. I can search with LinkedIn Recruiter, whatever company I'm at, I can search on every one of their connections. So I don't need to ask, who do you know? I can search on your connections and say, hey, there's 4 great people. You know Mary Smith. What do you think about her? Well, she's not looking. I know, but is she good? Absolutely good. I can now call Mary Smith up in Recruiter. That's the value of LinkedIn Recruiter. And even LinkedIn doesn't know that. Well, they know it, but they don't promote it as aggressively as they should. So that's the idea. Finding 20 to 25 great people and recruiting them ahead of time. Changing the rules entirely. Less is more. Less sourcing, better selection of whom you're going to go after, and let's get 100% response rate. So that's what I like to talk about. How do you do that? So let me kind of give you, and feel free, well, semi-free anyway, to ask questions. It would be better if the questions you ask are near Laura, who's got the mic. We don't, okay, so there Laura's over there. We're kind of disowning this group over here. Is this the second tier group, or is this the bleacher seats? Well, now I see some people there I think probably stay over here. That's New York humor. So let me kind of go back many, many years. My initial background really was at Rockwell. My first job was working on Minuteman guidance systems. I then got into manufacturing, then I got into finance and cost controls. I was in Southern California, then I got transferred to Rockwell Automotive in Troy, Michigan. Then I went back and worked in the automotive industry. I was running a small manufacturing company, hated my boss, which I think most people would say is the #1 reason for quitting. I was using recruiters, and I decided just to become a recruiter. Stupid decision. I was 31 or 32 years old. At the time, even at the time it seemed stupid, but neither here nor there, I did it. But I quickly realized that recruiting actually is a business process, just like making parts. As long as you have feedback process control systems, you're tracking every part of it, you could actually figure it out. There's a lot of slop in the system. And I never used a skills-based job description. I just walked through the manufacturing facility, figure out what the person needed to do to fix the problem. That became a book called Hire With Your Head. It was written in 1997. It was actually written in 1995, published in 1997. 3 editions. Done audio tape programs with Nightingale Conant, still available. Just done a program with Linda, which is available at lynda.com, which is LinkedIn's learning platform. Wrote another book which you have copies of, Essential Guide for Hiring and Getting Hired. but basically talks about this integrated business process, which I'll get into, but it basically says you got to know the job, you have to know how to find good people, you have to interview good people well, and you have to close the deal based on career growth, not comp. So that became a business process. And as I go through some of the steps in that, you'll discover that they're not rocket science. Now, I say that I really knew rocket science, which I kind of did. It's not as hard as people make it out to be, but neither here nor there. It's not insignificant, but it's easier than building an iPhone. Let me just say that, rocket science. But it really gets to this teardrop approach. The idea is you don't need a lot of people. You need a few people well chosen ahead of time who would see your job as a career move. You got to contact them somehow, and you got to recruit them. And it's not the same as box checking skills. What's interesting, though, is that when you're talking to a passive candidate, and I'm going to contend every one of those challenges that you've identified can easily be solved if you go after passive candidates. But they will not one of them will apply to your job. But if you engage in a conversation with them, and it's going to take hours for a top person to find out if this job is a career move or not, but what you're going to do is you're going to spend more time with fewer people. So your end result will take just as long. You just won't waste your time talking to people you're not going to hire. You're going to attract people who why waste your time weeding out the weak? Why don't we just spend less time attracting the best and spend more time with them? That's the concept. So let me get into this strategy situation, because this is the stage. If you buy into this, what I'm about to say, you should stay for the next hour or so. If you don't buy into this, we'll give everyone 2 minutes to walk out. So because then if you don't buy into this part, you won't buy into the rest of it, so it won't matter. But when you think about the hiring, first off, let me ask you this question. For those jobs you're having difficulty to fill, is there a surplus of great talent, meaning there's plenty of good people, or is there a scarcity of great talent? So how many of you say, for the people you're trying to hire, the most important business, is there a scarcity? How many would say surplus? Probably, it's always a scarcity. So let's just kind of think about the scarcity process, because it's different. When you think about hiring, there's 4 big categories of decisions that take place, only 4. One of them is what a person has on his or her resume in terms of skills and experiences. Another one, and what we do is we also write job descriptions that way, must have this. So job descriptions list basically a list of requirements of what a person needs to have. A candidate's LinkedIn profile or resume lists a sequence of stuff, but dominated by what a person has in terms of skills and experience, and a lot of matching takes place there, which is the big problem, which we'll go into in a minute. We then have the next bucket is when you actually make contact with that person, and a negotiation takes place with the recruiter, checking to make sure that what the candidate has said he or she has on a resume actually maps to what they want, and they do the box checking. The candidate, if they're not desperate, will start asking questions about, what do I get? Do I get, this is what they get on the day they start. They get a job, they get a title, they get a location, they get a compensation package, and they work with a company. It's what they get. And the recruiter and the candidate alike negotiate the opportunity to even have a discussion based on those 2 things, which do not predict success. They actually negotiate the terms of an offer before anybody knows what the job is, if the person's any good. So we just automatically stop the communication at that moment. And these are the passive candidates. If you ask a passive candidate or any top-tier person, active or passive, after 2 to 3 or 4 weeks where they've met the interview, they've met the hiring manager, they've been on the interviewing team, they understand the company, they've done their research, you've done your reference checks, you've done the medical check, you've done the interviewing, and you ask the person, why did you take our offer amongst competing offers? They'll always say, the career growth opportunity, the team I'm going to work with, the challenges offered, the hiring manager team I'm going to work with, and the comp and package is there, but when they take the offer, the comp is a negotiable item. When you first talk to them on the phone, the compensation is a filter to have a conversation, which makes no sense whatsoever. We stop the conversation based on stuff that doesn't predict performance. We negotiate the terms of an offer when nothing is known about what that offer could be. And we eliminate the opportunity to both talk to that person, qualify that person, and get referrals from that person. That is the fundamental challenge. You ask a person why they took the job, it's what they can do and what they can become. And every single applicant tracking system you have, I don't care what one you have, even Greenhouse, which I think is remarkable, is based on a surplus of talent strategy, weeding out the weak. They should be built on a scarcity strategy to attract few people, attract the best. Now, there's a dance required. The idea is that if a person can do the work, which means you have to define the work, if they can do the work, they'll have exactly the skills needed. Because it was Phil over here doesn't have 7 years experience. He's got 4 years experience, and we're still promoting him at the director level spot. He can do the work. He has obviously enough skills. But if we hire him from the outside, he would have to have 7 years experience. Makes no sense. We're filtering on stuff that doesn't predict performance. So we do have to make a judgment. Now, let me also say this. If Phil was from the outside and was a director of product marketing, he would want 20 to 30% more than what he's making today. Every passive candidate says, you can just look at the numbers. They always want 20 to 30% more and more convenient, closer to home and a better company, the title. When they know the job, the company doesn't matter as much. The title is not unimportant, but not as critical if the scope and challenge is there. And the comp becomes a negotiable item within the 5 to 10% range. Before, it's 30%. But rarely do we have that conversation with those people. None of them actually apply because they're not interested. So you have a dance with the hiring manager. The managers cannot use skills-based job descriptions to define the work. So the recruiter has to convince the manager, what does this person need to do to be successful? We don't compromise on that. They can do the work. They have exactly the skills needed. The candidate focus is going to be what they can do and become, not what they get. So yesterday we talked about this technique, and I'll give it to you very quickly. When I call candidates up who are passive candidates, and I've cherry-picked whom I'm going to call, I asked them, would you be open to explore a situation if it were clearly superior to what you're doing today? We get 93% of those people saying yes. Some of them say, well, what's the money? And I say, the money really doesn't matter if it's a career move. Let's first see if it's a career move, and then let's see if the compensation will fit. Worst case, we can network. That gets the other 100%. That gets the 100%. Have a conversation about a career move. Don't sell the job. It's one thing I say, don't sell the job, sell the conversation about a potential opportunity. It's changing the rules. We're going down the funnel, different level. It's not a transaction, it's a career move. And here's the fundamental rule that I would urge you, this is the one you either buy in or don't buy into. You cannot use a talent surplus hiring process when a talent surplus doesn't exist. That's a strategic concept. And any process you have that assumes there's a surplus of talent will ultimately result in failure. And I'm going to contend that's the primary reason why applicant tracking systems, that cover story of Time magazine didn't work, is they had the strategy fundamentally wrong. Now, if you don't want to buy into that, feel free. Well, you probably would want to sneak out at this moment to leave, but I just want to talk, how do you implement that strategy? Because that's the strategy. It's always about strategy. However, all our systems, compliance systems, legal systems, applicant tracking systems, regulatory systems are built on this left to right model, and we have to reverse that. So it does take some work to do it. It's because you're fighting an uphill battle. But that's what performance-based hiring is. So let me kind of just go through it, highlight it, and then I'll give you some points here. And again, if anybody has thoughts, comments, or questions, raise your hand, and Laura will be around to have you ask the question. And I don't mind answering questions during the program or at the end of the program. Performance-based hiring. And this is the thing I learned probably on my first day. I placed a plant manager in a wheel manufacturing company. Southern California at the time was the capital of hot rods. So I knew a president of a company. We worked at Rockwell together. He was running a company in Southern California that made custom wheels. We needed a plant manager. I just walked through the plant. Had chrome problems, had material flow problems, had manufacturing engineering problems, had labor performance problems. And I said, okay, solve all those problems. And I never used the performance. I just always say, let's just take a tour. Or let's look at your performance reporting. What does a person need to solve? What needs to be improved? And that became the performance-based job description. But the key was, if you wanted to hire a great person, you had to have a great job. There's not one top 25% person who's fully employed is interested in the lateral transfer, unless you want to pay them 20 to 30% more. 100% of those 25, not 100%, but a large part of that top 25% is willing to have a conversation if the job represents a significant career move. But it's a conversation, and it takes time for that person to fully appreciate the career move. But bottom line, if it's not a career move, you're not going to hire any top 25% person. Software developer, electrical engineer, maintenance person, plant manager, accountant. It isn't going to happen. Number two, so when I go in to take a search assignment, and I'll kind of give you a quickie on how to do this in a moment, I just asked the hiring manager, hey, let's put the job description, the traditional job description in the parking lot. What does the person need to do to be successful? And it's always 5 or 6 performance objectives. And I just asked them, let's define top 25%. I won't compromise on performance. Give me a little relief on the skills, but let's not compromise on performance. That way we can raise the talent bar. Number two, the best people don't look for work the way average people look for work. Average people look for work, apply to jobs. They never get them. And the good ones that actually apply get peeled off almost within moments. So if you're trying to get good people, you better make sure your ad is visible, compelling, and you're willing to jump on a person within hours after they've applied to your job. That, at least you'll get the best people who apply. If a person's been applying for months, obviously not the best person. So I tend to reach out through referrals and networking to get people. We have the 2-question performance-based interview. I don't know if I can do this. I was actually telling Jonathan that I was going to interview everybody in this room at the same time. That's going to be challenging, but I'll see if I can do it. I'm going to have to kind of think about the answer. So interviewing everybody, what I'm about to do, if I do it, I would urge you, do not try this at home in your own. So I will see if we can do there. So let me go there. But then you got to close the deal. Now let me ask you this. I didn't want to ask this question. I forgot the question. No, I'm thinking about it. Here's the question. The question is, have you ever lost a candidate at any stage in the process due to compensation because you don't have enough money in the budget? Well, in the early 80s, I started losing people due to compensation. I then decided, because, again, my background is manufacturing and process controls and cost controls, is what could I do to not lose people for compensation? And the only thing you had to do is offer the person a career opportunity. So the compensation didn't become a filter or a critical issue, it became a negotiable item. And I discovered I could get people you can always negotiate 5 or 10%. That's really easy. It's hard to negotiate more than that. I discovered if the person was a career move, they were always willing to compromise at some degree because they made the decision what they were going to do and become, not what they were going to get. And I can get people to relocate based on that. Didn't matter where, even Milwaukee. Well, maybe not Milwaukee, but I bet we could probably do it. I would actually like to do it. Can we get people from from a reasonable city come to Milwaukee? I think it's possible. Not positive, but I think it's possible. What I do is I offer people a 30% non-monetary increase. And I'm going to show you a chart what that is. But basically it's job growth, faster growth, bigger impact, more job satisfaction, and job stretch, bigger job. If I can get that, the person sees it, it's a clear career move. Yeah, I got to give up a little in comp, but it's worth it because a year or two from now I'll be far ahead of where I would be. And so that's the negotiating strategy. That was performance-based hiring. I assume there's other ways to hire great people. I know at the entry level, a great employer brand, an aggressive college recruitment program, strong intern programs can do it for entry-level people, college grads. I have not seen other system expert system that can hire top-tier people, top 25% piece of passive candidates. So I think this is called an expert system, meaning other people can just emulate it and you get the same results. Again, if you want information, info at Lou Adler Group, more about it, you can just go there, louadlergroup.com, and you'll see it. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I said. I can do this a few times with a few people. If you're interested, you can call Jonathan or send me an email, info at Lou Adler Group, and I will work with you and a hiring manager to build a very short description of what a performance-based job description looks like. I'm going to show you how that is now, but I just want to highlight that. But here's why the statistics on passive candidate recruiting and networking referrals are so important. This is a combination of 3 surveys. LinkedIn did a survey of 20,000 people, and they've done it throughout the last 3 years, and I've been a part of that surveys. And we've done our own surveys asking people, how did you get your last job? And we then asked, if you got your job in the last 6 months, how active were you? Were you unemployed, employed, super passive, or kind of thinking about it? And that's what these charts show. Let me just kind of highlight it. So, and the purple line represents applied to a job. The blue line represents networking. Actually, based on the new survey, this is actually jumps up to 42%, and this drops down to 41%. But people who were underemployed or unemployed, 50%, it's about 50-50. This chart's a little bit outdated, but 50-50 found their jobs. So even people who were underemployed still found their jobs through networking, just about a equal rate. People who were fully employed but active, again, that statistic stays the same. About 35% found their job through applying, 48% found their jobs through networking. So even active candidates find more jobs through networking. These are active candidates. Tiptoers, these are people who are thinking about entering the work or changing jobs. And I think every one of you has probably been a tiptoer at some part in your career. If you haven't, you will be. And what you do when you think, you don't want to tell the world you're looking. You specifically don't want to tell LinkedIn you're looking, because if you change your profile on LinkedIn, LinkedIn will now start, they know you're looking